Good morning, everybody. Today's lesson is about the sigma notation. Now, this is a new concept, I think, to all the grade 10s, 11s and 12s. Sigma has a specific symbol that we use in maths, and sigma means to get the sum of terms. Now, the sigma symbol looks like a capital E, but it has sharp points. So that's what the sigma notation looks like. And sigma means it is the sum of all the terms of a series. So it's the sum of all the terms of a series. For example, if we have the sigma notation and we say we want all the terms to n's and summarize them, get the sum from term 1 until term 4. That's what it means. Now, what is very important is to first always calculate the number of terms. And that you say, it's the top number, minus the bottom number plus 1. So in our example here, it will be the number of terms, will be the top number, it's 4, minus the bottom number, which is 1, plus 1. The bottom number can start at any number, so it won't always be 1. That's why we say it's top minus bottom plus 1. And in this case we have 4 minus 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4 terms. Therefore, the n in my series will be 4. Let's look at an example. If we have the sigma notation of the terms 2 to the power of minus k, and k starts at 2 till 4, let's work out the number of terms. Remember, it's top minus bottom plus 1. So top is 4, minus the bottom is 2, plus 1. 4 minus 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So what this means is summarize 3 terms, and that is my formula. Let's look at this example. The sigma notation is from term 1 until term 4 for 2n. Now the first thing you should calculate is always what is the number of terms that this sigma notation wants. The number of terms is top minus bottom plus 1. So it's 4 minus 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4. We want 4 terms. Sigma means sum of. So let's quickly write down the 4 terms. To get our first term, we just substitute 1 into n's place. So 2 times 1. To get our second term, we substitute n 1 more, which is 2, into n's place. To get our third term, you substitute 3. And to get our fourth term, you substitute 4. Now remember, sigma means get the sum. So we need to add the pluses. 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 times 4 is 8. If you add all of them, you will get 20. The next thing that you always should do before you summarize it is to determine whether this series is geometrical or arithmetic. In this case, if we minus the two terms, we get 2. If we minus those two terms, we get 2. And if we minus those two terms, we get 2. So it's a constant difference. Therefore, D is 2, and it is an arithmetic series. In this case, it was easy to mentally calculate the sum. But in some sigma notations, you will get up to 50 or up to 100 terms to calculate. And that is when we use our sum of formula. And therefore, it's important to recognize which series or sequence we are working with. In our next example, we have the sigma notation where k is from 2 till 4 of 2 to the power of minus k. The first thing we need to do is to calculate the number of terms. So it's top minus bottom plus 1. 4 minus 2 is 2 plus 1 is 3 terms. So let's write them down. Term 1, term 2, term 3. Term 1, we substitute 1 into k's place. Term 2, we substitute 2 into k's place. And term 3, we substitute 3. Because it's a sigma, it means get the sum of, we add. Here we get, oh wait, I made a mistake. K was start at 2, so there is a 2, and then a 3, and then a 4. Sorry about that. So 2 to the power of minus 2 will give you a quarter. 2 to the power of minus 3 will get you an eighth. 2 to the power of minus 4 give you 1/16. If we look at what we did with the second term, it is an eighth divided by a quarter. And here we have a 16th divided by an eighth. So we are working with a geometrical series because we have an R, a constant ratio. It's important, once again, to recognize which series you are working with in order to choose the right sum formula to add them all. Let's do example C on page 1. They give us a sequence, minus 2, minus 4, minus 6, up until minus 14. And they want us to write the first 6 terms in sigma notation. So they actually want us to write this. The sigma notation, next to the sigma notation, we always write our general term down. And we start, because we're working with n, we start with always at 1. And where must we end? They tell us it's 6 terms. So we have to write down the first 6 terms in sigma notation. So we're going to end at 6. Now we need to work out Tn. In order to work out Tn, we must first determine whether this is an arithmetic or geometrical sequence. I can see that it is an arithmetic sequence because -4 minus -2 will give me -2, and -6 minus -4 will also give me -2. Therefore, that will be D, the constant difference. Because we're working with an arithmetic sequence, Tn equals A plus n minus 1 times D. A is our first value, that is -2, plus n stays in, and the D is also -2. So we get -2 minus 2n plus 2, and that simplifies to -2n. So our sigma notation will be from n equals 1 up until 6, and Tn's formula minus 2n. It's good practice when you're working with negative numbers to put them in a bracket. It will just make it easier for you not to make so many mistakes. Our next example is example C on page 2. Here they give us a sequence -2, -4, -8 up until -64. Now if we have to write the first 6 terms in sigma notation, it means they want this. Sigma notation also means get the sum of. We have to go up until 6 terms, so my top value will be 6, and because we're working with a general term and they want the first 6 terms, my n will start at 1. Now I have to determine Tn, but before I can determine Tn, I need to know whether this is arithmetic or geometrical, and we need to get the n, the R or the D. To get from -2 to -4, you can add 2, but if you add 2 from -4 to get to -8, you won't get -8. So it's not a D, it's not a constant difference. It has to be a ratio. -4 divided by -2 gives you 2. -8 divided by -4 gives you 2. So it's a constant ratio. Therefore, it is a geometrical sequence. For the geometrical sequence, our Tn's formula equals A times R to the power of n minus 1. My A is my first term, it's -2 times. My R is my constant ratio, which is also 2 to the power of n minus 1. I can't simplify that. Remember, you can't multiply bases if they are not the same. So this is Tn's formula, and we can substitute it in there. Get the sigma notation from 1 till 6 of -2 times 2 to the power of n minus 1. For example D on page 1, we need to determine the sum of terms from 1 till 3, and that is my formula for the terms. So we need to determine the sum of, that's the sigma. So let's first write down all the terms. But we need to determine how many terms there are. So the number of terms equals the top value minus the bottom value plus 1, and that is 3. So we have 3 terms. Let's write them down. Term 1, term 2, term 3. We substitute first 1 into n's place, so it's minus 2 times 1. For term 2, we substitute the 2 into n's place, and for term 3, we substitute the 3 into n's place. Because it's sigma, we need to add all of them. So let's work out what they are. It's negative 2 plus negative 4 plus negative 6. Therefore, it's minus 2 minus 4 minus 6. It's easy to do 3 terms, to add them mentally. But should there have been 13, it will take you a long time, or 30, it will take you a long time. So I'm going to show you how to use the sum formula to calculate sigma notation as well. First, we need to determine whether this is a geometrical or an arithmetic sequence. To get from minus 2 to minus 4, we add minus 2, or you can say minus 6 minus minus 4 is minus 2. That is a constant difference, therefore it's an arithmetic series. It's important to know which series we are working with, so that you know which sum formula to use. So we're going to use the sum formula for the arithmetic series. That is n over 2 times 2a plus n minus 1 times d. Our n is 3, so it's 3 over 2 times 2a is negative 2 plus n is 3 minus 1 and d is also negative 2. If you type that into your calculator, you get minus 12. If we did the sum mentally, it would also have given us minus 12. Our next example is example D on page 2, and they ask us to determine the sigma notation of minus 2 times n, 2 to the power of n minus 1 from n is 1 up until 3. So let's first calculate the number of terms. They are talking about. It's top minus bottom plus 1, and that will give you 3. So we have to get the sum of 3 terms. If we substitute 1 into n's place, for term 1 we will get minus 2 to the power of 1 minus 1. Term 2 is negative 2 times 2 to the power of, now we substitute 2 into n's place, so it will be 2 minus 1. And for term 3, it will be negative 2 times 2 to the power of 3 minus 1. Sigma means plus. Get the sum of 1 minus 1 is 0, and 2 to the power of 0 will give you 1. 1 times minus 2 is minus 2. Two to the power of 2 minus 1 is 1, so it's 2 to the power of 1. And our last term is negative 2 times 2 to the power of 3 minus 1 is 2. And we get minus 2. Minus 2 times 2 is minus 4, times plus is minus 4. 2 to the power of 2 is 4, times minus 2 is minus 8, times the plus is minus 8. Now we need to determine whether this is an arithmetic or a geometrical series. Negative 4 divided by negative 2 will give you 2. Negative 8 divided by negative 4 will give you 2. So we have a ratio. So R will be 2, and we're working with a geometrical series. Now it's easy to calculate it mentally. You will get minus 2 minus 4 is minus 6, minus 6 minus 8 is minus 14. But I want to show you how to use the sum formula to also determine the sum of 3 terms. We determined that it is a geometrical series, so we're going to use the sum formula for the geometrical series. It's a times r to the power of n minus 1 over r minus 1. We know that we have to add 3 terms, so it's the sum of 3 terms. A is minus 2. R is 2, N is 3, over R is 2 minus 1, and if you calculate that, you will get negative 14, which is the same as our mental calculation. Our last example is example 2, number 4 on page 20 of your textbook. This one. Find the greatest value of n for which this sigma notation is smaller than 2660. Now they give us a lot of clues in this question. They tell us it's the sum of n terms. They give us Tn. And they also tell us, sort of, that the answer of the summation is 2660. Okay. We always write our first 3 terms down to determine which SN formula we need to work with. So let's write the summation down. It's the sigma notation where R is from 1 till n of 3R plus 5. So let's write down term 1, term 2, and term 3 up until term n. Term 1, we substitute 1 into R's place, so it's 3 times 1 plus 5. Term 2, we substitute 2, 3 times 2 plus 5. Term 3, we substitute 3, so it's 3 times 3 plus 5. and the nth term will be 3 times n plus 5. But sigma notation means add. I'm just going to put this in brackets so that we can work out the values of our terms. Three times 1 is 3, plus 5 is 8. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 5 is 11. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 5 is 14. And the nth term stays as it is. Now we need to work out whether this is arithmetic or geometrical. Just by looking at it, I can see it's an arithmetic series. 11 minus 8 gives you 3. 14 minus 11 gives you 3. So we have a constant difference, and therefore it's an arithmetic series. The sum formula for the arithmetic series is Sn equals n over 2 times 2a plus n minus 1 times d. Now let's look at the question again. Find the greatest value for n. So how many terms, if you add them, you'll get an answer smaller than 2660. So how many terms do I need to add to get an answer smaller than 2660? So let's start by saying, let's add up all the terms to get 2660. So my sum of all the terms will be 2660. We want to work out n. Now we substitute the a and the d. A is 8. We want to work out n. D is 3. In order to get rid of the divide by 2, we must multiply by 2 and then it cancels out. But what you do on the one side of the equal sign, you must also do on the other side of the equal sign. And 2 times that will give you 5320 equals n. 2 times 8 is 16 plus 3n minus 3. So 5320 will give you 16 minus 3 is 13 plus 3n. I'm going to multiply the n into the bracket, and then you get 13n plus 3n squared. I can now see that this is a quadratic formula or quadratic equation, and for that I need to get all the terms to one side, arrange them in descending order, and on the one other side you get 0. So don't forget, when you take this over, don't forget to put your 0 there. The n squared stands first, then the n's, and then we get this over to this side, so it's a minus. You have two options. You can now either factorize or use the formula. When you see it's a big number, it's safe to use the formula, but I'm going to factorize this for you. And then you get n minus 40, 3n plus 133. Now we work out n. N will be 40, or n will be negative 133 over 3. N is the number of terms. We can't get a negative number of terms. You can't say I have minus 2 terms, but you can say I have 2 terms. So that therefore this minus at n is not applicable. And we have 40 terms. But I'm just going to carry on here. This means that the sum of 40 terms will get you an answer of 2660. But that was not the question. The question was, how many terms will give me an answer less than 2660? So, the sum of 39 terms will be less than 266.